It started as a simple curiosity. My friend Chris had been talking about the dark web for months. This hidden part of the internet that most people will never see, full of mystery, danger, and the occasional promise of forbidden knowledge. He told me that if I had the right software, I could find things that would make my skin crawl, things that would make me question my place in the world. I wasn't naive. I had heard the rumors about the kind of people who lurk in those shadows. Hackers, thieves, criminals, the whole twisted underbelly of the internet. But part of me still wanted to see it for myself, just to know what was out there. One evening, while I was alone in my apartment, I decided to go for it. My computer was powered on, and I was sitting there, the hum of the fan keeping me company. I installed Tor, the browser that could connect me to the hidden world. The installation was fast. Too fast, as if it had been waiting for me. Once I launched it, I felt a little thrill. I was about to take a step into something most people wouldn't even dream of. I searched for a few links. They weren't much, just random marketplaces selling things I didn't need. But then I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. The title was cryptic, The Auction of Souls. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The website was dark, as if designed to make you feel uneasy from the start. There were no bright colors, no flashy banners. Just black backgrounds with green text, like something from an old hacker's movie. My eyes were drawn to the list of items for auction. The first one caught my attention. Life for sale, highest bidder. First, I thought it was a sick joke, a morbid online auction that some twisted people were playing around with. But as I scrolled down, I saw a live countdown timer. The auction was real. People were bidding on someone's life. I froze. The auction was clear. The time of death will be chosen by the highest bidder. My stomach churned. I wanted to close the window, forget this ever happened. But my finger hovered over the mouse. Before I could decide, a new notification popped up on my screen. Message from auction admin, you're next. I laughed nervously. I assumed it was some kind of automated system. But the message didn't go away. It stayed there, glaring at me in red letters. And then, as if mocking me, my computer screen flickered. The cursor jumped to the Bid Now button. I didn't click it. I swear I didn't. But the screen changed anyway. Congratulations, you are the new highest bidder. Your life is up for auction. I didn't know what to do. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. Was this a sick joke? A prank by someone who had somehow gained control of my computer? Or was it something darker? The words on the screen didn't make sense, yet they felt strangely real. I moved the mouse to close the tab, but my hands were shaking. Suddenly, the computer screen flickered again, and for a brief moment, the image of a man appeared. His face was pale, gaunt, his eyes hollow, as if he hadn't seen the sun in years. His mouth twisted into a smile, a cold, hollow grin, before the screen blinked back to the auction page. I jerked back, my heart racing. I tried to close the tab again, but nothing happened. I pressed Ctrl plus Alt plus Delete, but the task manager wouldn't open. It was like the computer had become its own entity, pulling me deeper into whatever nightmare I had stumbled into. And then the message appeared again. Don't worry, you'll understand soon. The hunt begins now. I grabbed my phone, desperately trying to call Chris, but the call wouldn't go through. I checked my Wi-Fi connection, only to see that it had disconnected. Something felt off, too quiet, too still. I tried to leave my apartment, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that I was being watched. I stood by the door, my hand on the doorknob, and then I heard it. A sound coming from the hallway outside. A soft scraping like something dragging across the floor. My heart raced even faster. I opened the peephole, but there was no one there. I stepped back from the door, my eyes darting around the room, trying to make sense of what was happening. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The buzzing of the fluorescent bulbs overhead filled the silence, making the air thick with tension. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. You can't run from this. It's already begun. I ran to the window, my breath quickening. My phone rang. It was a strange number, no area code I recognized. Against my better judgment, I answered. We know where you are. A voice said, low and distorted, like it was coming from the other side of a tunnel. You can't hide. I slammed the phone down, but my whole body froze when I saw something moving across the street. A man in a dark coat, standing in the shadows. He wasn't walking, he was just watching. I felt the air go cold, a shiver running down my spine. It hit me like a punch. I wasn't alone. I was being hunted. I backed away from the window, heart pounding so loudly I thought it might burst. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to get out of the apartment and never look back. But the man outside, he wasn't just standing there. He was looking directly at me. My breath hitched as I stumbled away from the window, my mind racing. What was going on? Why was I being targeted? I grabbed my keys and ran to the door, my legs feeling like lead as I fumbled with the lock. I glanced back toward the window. The man was still there, unmoving, just staring at me. But there was something else, something worse. His face. It wasn't just his eyes that were locked on me. His mouth had stretched into that same sickening grin I had seen earlier on the screen. I yanked the door open, rushing out into the hallway. The building was eerily quiet, too quiet. My pulse raced as I sprinted down the stairs, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I reached the street and looked around. The cold air stung my skin, but there was no one in sight. No sign of the man. For a moment, I thought I might be okay. Maybe it was all a nightmare. Maybe I was overreacting. Then my phone buzzed again. You can't run. We've already marked you. I froze. This time, I didn't have to look up to feel it. The air around me was thick with something dark, something suffocating. I turned to see the same man in the coat, standing at the end of the street, his figure barely visible in the shadows. But he wasn't alone. There were others behind him, more figures, indistinct and blurred, like they were part of the night itself. I turned to run, but as I did, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. A strange sound echoed through the street, like whispers, but they were not coming from anyone around me. They seemed to come from all directions at once. I glanced down at my phone again, but the message was different this time. It's too late. The auction never ends. I knew then that it was no longer a game. These people, the ones hunting me, were not just some dark web group pulling strings from behind a screen. They were real, and they had the power to make me vanish into nothing. I turned and bolted, not looking back, not caring where I was running to. I ran until I reached a subway station, my legs burning, the sound of my breath drowning out everything else. As I descended into the underground, I tried to collect myself. The train was coming. I stepped on, feeling the safety of the moving vehicle as it left the station. But that comfort was short-lived. As the train rumbled along the tracks, my phone buzzed once more. You're not safe there either. You can't hide from us. A chill swept over me. The lights in the train flickered, and then the whispers returned. Not from the street, not from anywhere I could see, but from somewhere in the darkness, deep within the train. They were getting closer. Couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like there was something pressing on it. The whispers had grown louder now, as if they were surrounding me, closing in from all sides. I glanced around, my pulse racing, but the train was still full of passengers, normal people, oblivious to the terror that had a grip on me. I told myself I was just imagining things, that I had let my mind run wild, that everything would be fine once I got off. But when I looked up, my heart stopped. The man in the dark coat was there. He wasn't standing, he was sitting, across from me, right there, in the seat on the other side of the aisle, his face hidden beneath the brim of his hat. The same grin stretched across his lips, so wide it looked unnatural. My stomach lurched, but I couldn't look away. His eyes, those eyes were locked on me, unblinking. I tried to stand up, but my legs wouldn't move. My hands, trembling, reached for my phone. I had to call someone, anyone. But as I fumbled with the screen, a new message popped up. You're not going anywhere. The train doesn't stop for you. I could feel the walls of the train pressing in on me, the space shrinking, suffocating me. The door that should have led to the conductor's compartment was shut, locked. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The train screeched as it pulled into a station, but the doors didn't open. People around me didn't seem to notice. Everyone just stared straight ahead, as if nothing was wrong. But the air was thick with the stench of something metallic, like blood, and I could feel it now, the eyes of the others. The passengers weren't just staring at the walls, they were staring at me. Their faces were wrong. Too still, too lifeless, as if they were hollow. Empty. I looked down again at my phone, almost too afraid to check, but I had to. The text was waiting for me. You're trapped. We're inside your head now. I could feel it. The darkness was no longer just a threat on a screen or a figure in the corner of my eye. It was in my mind. I was slipping. The train came to a halt, but the doors didn't open. The whispering had become a cacophony in my ears, disorienting, overwhelming. The shadows around me seemed to shift, swirl like smoke, until the man in the coat stood up. He took a step toward me. The train lurched again, and the world around me tilted. The other passengers, those hollow eyes, those motionless faces, were standing now, all of them moving toward me. There was nowhere to run. I pushed through them, stumbling, my breath coming in gasps, but they closed in on me like a living wall. Each of them had that same twisted grin, their hands reaching out, touching me, dragging me back. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the whispers, swallowed by the darkness. And then, through the fog of panic, I heard it, the voice, that low, distorted tone that had haunted my every step. We told you, you can't escape. You never will. I wanted to scream again, to fight back, but the shadows were everywhere. My eyes fluttered, and I felt myself sinking, my legs giving out. It wasn't just the train now, it was my reality bending, twisting around me, suffocating me. And then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer on the train. I was in a room, a sterile, cold room with no windows, no doors. My head throbbed, and my body ached as if I had been dragged across the earth. Panic surged through me. I tried to sit up, but my arms and legs were bound to a chair, cold metal biting into my wrists and ankles. For a moment, everything was silent, except for my ragged breathing. My heart was pounding, and I tried to push the panic down, but it was useless. My mind raced, spinning in circles. Had I been captured? Had they finally found me? A figure stepped out from the shadows, slowly and deliberately, like a predator circling its prey. It was the man in the dark coat, but now his face was clear. His eyes, those hollow eyes, bored into me, unblinking, as though he could see right through me. That grin, stretched and twisted beyond human recognition, made my blood run cold. I tried to scream, but my voice was barely a whisper. The figure tilted his head, as though amused by my attempt. No point in screaming, he said, his voice warped, low, like a sound reverberating through a tunnel. No one can hear you here. This is our world now. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. What is this? Why are you doing this to me? The man stepped closer, his smile never wavering. You really think you were just a random victim? A victim of some sick, twisted game? I tried to look away, but my eyes were locked on his, drawn to him like a magnet. You weren't chosen by chance, he continued. You were chosen because you opened the door. You made the decision to click. You entered this world. Now you're ours. I felt the weight of his words sink into my chest. A sick realization hit me all at once. The auction wasn't some random occurrence. It was a trap that had been set for me and countless others before me. What do you want from me? I gasped, my voice trembling. Why me? He leaned in, his breath cold against my ear. It's not just you, it never was. You see, you're part of the cycle now. We find people like you, curious souls, and we auction them. The highest bidder chooses your fate. You're not the first to go through this, and you won't be the last. I tried to struggle against the restraints, but it was useless. The metal held me firm, my body completely trapped. My mind raced, searching for some way out, some explanation for all of this. But nothing made sense. Why are you telling me this? I managed to choke out. The man's grin deepened, and he stepped back, admiring me like I was a piece of art. Because you're going to help us in the end. All you need to do is accept it. Accept that you're ours now. And when the time comes, you'll be the one hunting others. We all are. I could feel the blood drain from my face as I understood the full extent of what he was saying. This was it. My life, my soul, my very existence. It was a part of something much darker. Something that had existed far longer than I could imagine. The figure stepped back further into the shadows, and I felt the room shift around me. I could hear the faintest hum, like electricity running through the walls. But there was something else, a sound in the distance, like footsteps. Slowly, they grew louder, drawing closer. Another figure entered the room, stepping into the light. A woman, her eyes cold, her face hollow, just like the man's. She stood silently, waiting. "It's time," she said simply. I looked at her, feeling the weight of her gaze. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't accept this. But I couldn't run either. Then, as if sensing my last hope, the man's voice slithered through the air once more. "You see, we own you now. And when you're ready to join us, we'll be waiting." The room felt like it was closing in. The walls, the figures, the whispers, they were all part of the same nightmare. And I had no choice but to accept it. The auction had never ended. And neither would I. I sat there, my body trembling with terror, my mind struggling to make sense of the madness that had consumed me. The woman stood still, her face void of emotion. Her eyes locked onto mine with a coldness that made my skin crawl. The man in the dark coat, the one who had haunted my every step, was watching too, waiting for something, perhaps for me to break. But I couldn't. I refused to. There had to be a way out. There had to be a way to stop this nightmare. The woman took a step closer, her footsteps echoing in the sterile silence of the room. I fought against the restraints, my wrists raw, but they held firm. The panic was rising again, threatening to drown me in its suffocating grip. But I couldn't give in. I had to think. I had to survive. "You think you can fight us?" The man's voice was a low growl, like a shadow crawling through the air. "You're already ours. You just don't know it yet." His words hung in the air, a poison seeping into my mind, trying to crush whatever resolve I had left. But something inside me sparked, a tiny, flickering flame of defiance. "I won't join you," I spat, the words coming out with more strength than I thought I had left. The woman's lips twitched into a grin, but it was cold and cruel. "You don't have a choice," she said, her voice almost soft. "This isn't about choice anymore. This is about survival." And with that, the room seemed to shift again, as though the walls themselves were closing in tighter. The air became thick, stifling, the whispers louder, almost deafening now. They were everywhere, around me, inside me, crawling under my skin. The darkness wasn't just a force outside me. It was part of me now, woven into the very fibers of my being. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out. The panic was overwhelming. Felt like I was drowning in it. "You can't escape," the man hissed, leaning in closer, his breath foul and rancid. "You belong to us. We own you." The woman stepped forward, her hand hovering over my shoulder, and in that moment, something inside me snapped. Not from fear, but from the understanding of what they were really offering me. A life, my life, had become a commodity, a pawn in an endless game of suffering, one where the stakes were my very existence. The auction never truly ended, and I had been marked from the moment I clicked on that cursed link. But there was one thing I had that they didn't: free will, the last shred of humanity they couldn't take from me. And that's when I realized I didn't have to run. I didn't have to play their game. As the woman's hand came down to touch me, I wrenched myself free from the restraints, breaking free with a surge of adrenaline. The man stepped back, startled, but it was too late. I pushed him aside, stumbling toward the door that had been locked, feeling the darkness press against me from all sides. But I wouldn't give in. I wouldn't let them claim me. I didn't care if I was hunted. I didn't care what would happen to me after this moment. I just needed to escape, to break free from their grasp. I threw open the door. It was dark outside, But there was something different about it now, an opening, a crack in the fabric of their world. For the first time, I saw the faintest glimmer of light, a thread of hope. I could feel it pulling me forward, urging me to take that final step. And I did. I ran. I didn't look back. Did you like these stories? Write in the comments. And please write what you didn't like. It will be useful for me to know your opinion. And I will improve my work. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel and click the bell so as not to miss new stories. I try for you.